Hello and welcome to News of the Hour on youtube.com/nDTV. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. This is where we tell you the big stories of the day that we're tracking. We want you to get back to us with what you'd like to hear more about. We put out a daily poll, and as you can see over here, perhaps the most fascinating story of the day, Chandrayaan 2's lander Vikram found, says NASA, and that's not it. The US Space Agency also has credited an Indian engineer, a Chennai-based 33-year-old Indian engineer, with that discovery. So let's dive back a little to figure out how this all came about. Remember, it was on the 7th of September that India's space research organization, the ISRO, that was the fateful day that its Vikram lander was going to land on the south pole of the moon, something that had not been attempted before. And it was just 2.1 kilometers above the moon's surface that the ISRO lost contact with its Vikram lander, and of course said to the world that the Vikram lander had what is known as a hard landing. But until now, there was actually no trace of the debris of the Vikram lander. This despite the fact that the NASA's lunar reconnaissance orbiter, which keeps circling the lunar surface, tried to look for the Vikram lander or the debris of the Vikram lander time and time again, but failed to do so. Now, NASA decided to put out some images of what it believed to be was the crash site, or the place around the crash site, what would have been the landing site originally, and the area around it. This was known as the mosaic, and this was put out even on Twitter. And in fact, NASA asked space enthusiasts to see if they could try and spot where the Vikram lander had crashed into the surface, the lunar surface as it were. Well, lots of space enthusiasts the world over took up that challenge, but it was 33-year-old Shanmuga Subramanian, based in Chennai, who decided to take up that challenge for himself. And he then, with just one laptop and a good internet connection, decided that this was going to be his single-minded focus for the next few days. Now, of course, he had a day job. He's an engineer. Every day, once he came back for 7 hours, he would sit down with his laptop and pour through those images that NASA had put out inch by inch by inch, till he came across what he thought was evidence of the debris of the Vikram lander, which shattered presumably on impact with the lunar surface. Now, those images, having sort of gone through them and found some changes on the moon's surface, that's what he tweeted then to both the US Space Agency, NASA, as well as India's space research organization, the ISRO. And he said he got a response back from NASA almost straight away. ISRO till this date hasn't actually responded to the Indian engineer, but NASA decided to take up what were his findings and go through them in greater detail. And it was just today, in fact, that they have now confirmed that indeed Shanmuga Subramanian had actually found the debris of the Vikram lander. Now, this is huge in terms of the finding. It's made the 33-year-old Chennai-based engineer an international celebrity, an internet celebrity right now. So let's just take you through a little more detail of what we know so far. Well, here is the letter, in fact, that Shanmuga Subramanian got from John Keller, deputy project scientist with the Lunar Renaissance Orbiter mission. And it says, thank you for your email informing us of your discovery of debris from the Vikram lander. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter team has confirmed the location does exhibit changes in images taken before and after the date of the landing, that is before the 7th of September and after the 7th of September. Using this information, the team did additional searches in this area and located the site of the primary impact as well as other debris around the impact location. It's announced the sighting on the NASA and ASU pages, where you have been given credit for your observation. And it says, I apologize for the delay in getting back to you. We needed to be certain of our interpretation of the observation and make sure that all stakeholders had an opportunity to comment before we could announce the results. So presumably NASA has also got in touch with ISRO, but we don't know what their response is right now. and it congratulates him for great effort on your part. You'll probably get some inquiries from the press on your discovery, and of course that has immediately happened. We know already that Shanmuga Subramanian is a sensation. So let's take a closer look then at what it was that Shanmuga Subramanian found. And this is NASA's tweet which announced that the Chandrayaan 2 Vikram lander has been found by our NASA moon mission, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. See the first mosaic of the impact site. Now, what are these blue dots and these green dots? Well, let's take a closer look at that. Now, many can probably not spot the difference, but if you see this picture very, very carefully, then these green dots indicate the spacecraft debris. Now, this is either confirmed or likely spacecraft debris. The blue dots actually show disturbed soil on the lunar surface. Now, this is likely to be where small bits of the spacecraft actually churned up what is known as the regolith. Now, of course, days after the attempt to land on the lunar surface, the ISRO had confirmed they had lost all communications with the orbiter. NASA too said Chandrayaan 2 had a hard landing and released pictures of that targeted landing site. And that's really where all of this has come from. But of course, thanks to this very sharp-eyed Chennai-based engineer. Now, Mr. Subramanian was the first to have come up with a positive identification, as it were, and he said that he tweeted NASA with this some time ago, and NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter actually went over that area again, and that's why it's taken so long. Even after he tweeted NASA, it was only on the 14th or 15th of November, when the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter went over the surface of the moon again, that NASA had even more detailed images of the site, and that's what they used really to delve deep into Shanmuga's findings, and presumably they now have enough proof, enough of the evidence they need to actually decide that this is where the Vikram lander in fact crash landed, as it were, on the lunar surface. Now, what do we know about Mr. Subramanian? He's originally from Madurai. He works in the IT sector at a multinational firm. He's an engineering graduate from Tirunelveli, and he's saying he's an out-and-out space enthusiast, and he hopes that his discovery will now inspire many other amateurs. And the reason why this is probably such an inspiring story is that he didn't actually need any great knowledge of astrophysics. He didn't really need, of course, there were calculations involved, but literally what he did was pore over these pictures with a fine-tooth comb with his laptop, with his internet connection, and he really didn't have any other sophisticated equipment at his disposal, but he managed to pull this off nonetheless. Well, Shanmuga Subramanian, the biggest talking point on the internet today. We hope you've enjoyed hearing a little more about him and his findings. Remember, you can also listen to him directly, his interview, also available on nDTV.com and youtube.com/nDTV. So do tune in to that and our special programming around this discovery. Now, if you speak to Shanmuga Subramanian, he'll say, yes, my discovery is indeed big, but it is also a bit sad, because in the end, Chandrayaan 2 did not really manage to do what it set out to do. But there's a positive spin on this. He hopes that there's going to be a Chandrayaan 3, which will succeed in doing everything that Chandrayaan 2 had set out to do, but failed to do. So we hope you found this interesting. And do tune in to News of the Hour on youtube.com/nDTV to find out more on the day's biggest headlines.